Have you ever seen in the movies or maybe in person where somebody's been preparing food and somebody else was just really ungrateful and the other person's like, you know what, I'm so mad, I hope you choke on it. Well, God kind of does that to the nation of Israel in today's video. Hey guys, and welcome back to God's Word Made Simple by Simple Servant Ministries. My name is Aaron Hawk, and if this is your first time visiting with us, I just want to say welcome and thank you for joining us today. God's Word Made Simple is an online discipleship ministry dedicated to taking God's Word and making it simple. We want to help you understand God's Word, apply it to your life, and grow in your relationship with the Lord. And by the way, if you appreciate this content at some point, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn that bell notification to all so you don't miss any future videos. We would really love to have you as part of our family. Okay guys, welcome back. So today we are continuing our Exodus series. So if you have not caught it, catch up. I'll point for the Exodus series. You can check out the card there. But at the very least, I would say at least go back to chapter 15 if not. But I would catch up on the whole thing so that it really makes sense. So basically we're jumping right into chapter 16. Today's video is fairly short. It's only 8 videos. But we're going to see that continued pattern that I referenced in one of the last videos, the cyclical pattern where the people see God's miraculous stuff happen and then they doubt, they struggle, and they don't want to do it anymore. They long for death, etc., and whine and complain and rebel against Moses and blame Moses, even though their battle is really between God and them. We're seeing that pattern again today. So in the last section, remember God provided water for them. So they routed Egypt, they got to loot Egypt, defeated them economically on their own soil. Then God defeated Egypt militarily by drowning them in the Red Sea. Then they went 3 days' journey. God blessed them with water after they grumbled. And now we're seeing a grumbling over food. So there's a pattern here where God is testing them. So a couple of observations. One, there's a cyclical pattern that we all go through because we are sinful human beings. Check out my Genesis series, especially go to like chapter 3 or so. We are all sinful beings, and so that's just inherent to being human. But as we follow God, we learn to do that less and appreciate Him more. But this is also God testing the people before bringing them into the promised land, because God's plan with the promised land was to set up Israel and have them be His ambassadors to the world, the light on a hill that people could come to and learn about God, and that they would also go out to them as well. Although with ancient Israel, it was more about them coming to the nation of Israel. So anyway, God is testing them to see where their hearts really are. Now, God knows where their hearts are. God didn't have to do all these tests to see where their hearts were, or were. But the people didn't know their own hearts. See, God knows everything. He already knows the condition of our heart. But often we don't know what we're capable of or what our breaking point is or so on until life shows us. So they're going through it again, and God is going to use this as a test. Now, their grumbling is not God doing it, but He's going to use it as a test. So, chapter 16, verses 1 through 8, immediately after God brought them to the oasis. Then they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin. So, from the oasis back into a wilderness area, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after their departure from the land of Egypt. Now remember, the Israelite calendar is different than the one that we use. So you can't go that it was February 15th. That doesn't work that way. The Israelite calendar is different, and they would have likely, not guaranteed, but they likely would have been using the Israelite calendar. The whole congregation, actually no, they would have been for sure, because we talked about that in one of the more recent videos that they had already established that. So they would have been using the Israelite calendar for sure at that point. Anyway, verse 2, the whole congregation of the sons of Israel, so how many? All of them, the whole congregation. Not literally every single man, woman, and child, but on the whole, they were complaining. They grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. So once again, God's people blame God's leaders because they're angry at God. Leading God's people is not easy. The whole congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The sons of Israel said to them, "Would that we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by pots of meat, when we ate bread to the full, for you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." As a pastor, I can hear the deacons meeting or the vote of confidence or the business meeting or whichever version your church does, right? I can hear it because I've been there. They're angry at God, they're taking it out on God's leader, and they're blaming the leader personally. And they are golden aging the past. Listen to some of what they're saying. The sons of Israel said to them, "Would that we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt." Egypt was killing them already, for one. Why would they say the Lord's hand there, right? See, they know it's against God. They just can't really admit it to themselves. But really telling the next two things. When we sat by the pots of meat. So the idea here is that we had meat in abundance. We had so much meat we didn't know what to do with it, right? Meat just falling everywhere, right? And to continue their hyperbole, when we ate bread to the full, in other words, we didn't lack anything in Egypt. Now, I have told you guys that slavery in Egypt is different than what we think of. Our slavery in our own country is different than what most people think of. Different story, not the point of this channel. But slavery during this time with Egypt and Israel was very different than what most people think of. So they would have been largely provided for, but not the way they're telling the story. It's like that old fish story, the guy that caught the fish that was this big and before you know it, it was the size of a whale, right? They're looking back on the past with rose-colored glasses, as the saying goes. Man, we used to have meat galore. We had as much to eat as we wanted. We didn't have any needs in Egypt. Why didn't you just kill us there instead of making us die out here in this wilderness? I can hear it in my ears, clear as day, because I've heard this in church after church. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Moses, you are personally responsible for this, even though Moses wanted none of it to begin with. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, because he is the mediator. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them." So in other words, they want to whine and complain? Okay. I'm going to make it rain bread. Every single day, it's just going to rain down on them. And then we'll see whether they're really happy. Then we'll see whether this is really their gripe and their concern. Then we'll see where their heart really is. "Behold, I will make it rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether or not they will walk in my instruction." I think you can already tell to some degree where this is going, but we'll continue, and we'll see more as I continue the story in the next video or two as well. But he says that he's going to provide this and then test them. In other words, we're going to find out. So basically, just so that you know this, it elaborates later in the text, but I feel like it's important, since this is a teaching ministry, to go ahead and give you this one, a little bit of a spoiler alert. Basically, every single day they had to go out and gather the bread. And you hear the way I'm even saying it, they had to. Food just rains down from heaven, and we're such sinful people. I'm like, they have to go out, right? Ooh, they got to go to work to pick food up off the ground. Even here, right? Little self-reflection there. So every day they got to go, they were able to go and pick bread up off the ground. But the bread didn't last until the next day. In fact, they were forbidden from keeping bread from one day to the next. So in the Lord's Prayer, if you're familiar with that passage, in the Lord's Prayer it says, "Give us this day our daily bread." It harkens back to the manna, which is what this is going to be called, because they didn't know what to call it. They're just like this stuff, right? Anyway, it elaborates later. Right now, this is just a little preview. They'll go out daily to collect their portion every day, that I may test them whether or not they walk in my statutes. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily, as they gather daily. The reason for this is they were not supposed to do work on the Sabbath. They weren't supposed to go out in the fields and do work. So, on the 6th day, they would gather enough for the 7th day. Now remember, the Sabbath was originally Saturday. So that would have been Friday that they were gathering a double portion so that they didn't have to work on Saturday. So just don't forget that. Don't let that trip you. All right. So Moses and Aaron said to all the sons of Israel, "At evening you will know that the Lord has brought you out of the land of Egypt." As if they didn't already know this. Like, how many times does God have to repeat this? How many times does Moses have to repeat this? And yet, when I look at myself, how many times do I doubt God and he has to repeat himself? So Moses and Aaron said to all the sons of Israel, "At evening you will know that the Lord has brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, for he hears your grumblings against the Lord." Notice Moses pointed them where their grumblings actually belonged and called them out that God hears you people. You don't think God hears you? He hears you fussing and grumbling, but your gripe is really with God. And that's a leadership lesson for leaders. When people are fussing at you, direct them to God, because that's really where their animosity is pointed. Assuming you've done nothing wrong. If you're an idiot and you've done something wrong, fess up to it and apologize. But when it's this kind of a situation, direct them to the Lord. One, it takes a lot off of you personally, but two, that's actually where it belongs. So he directs them to God and points out that God hears them, right? So he hears your grumblings against the Lord, and what are we that you grumble against us? In other words, he's pointing out, hey, look, your problem isn't really with me. I'm following God just like you. Right now, what you're saying right now, that's actually a complaint against God. God's the one that did all this. God's the one that brought us here. I'm just the one that God put in charge for now, but I have no control because it's between you and God. And actually, guys, I think I'm just going to end it there. I really debated. Verse 8 is a transitional verse between the first section of this chapter and the next section. And originally, I was going to go ahead and include verse 8, but I think I'm actually going to hold off. I think I'm going to do that next time in the next video in the series. So we're just going to land it there for today. So apologize if I confused you saying we were doing 1 through 8 today. That was my original plan, but we're going to modify it. So make sure, if you appreciate this ministry and this content, hit like, hit subscribe, turn that bell notification to all so you don't miss any future videos, including the next one, because you want to hear about the meat in the wilderness and all that. And if you want to bless us and help us out, check out my video on how to help your favorite YouTube channel. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you very much, and God bless.